was on point. Today we're going to be talking about capitalism ho.
Capitalism, best capitalism.
Yeah.
The only viable economic system in the world.
Pure capitalism is the only way.
Yep. So supposedly, capitalism hero, Shield Hero, is about capitalism apparently. And this video is going to tell us why. That's what I can assume. I didn't have time to watch this beforehand, so we'll begin some fresh reactions from me. So yeah, I guess we'll just get straight into it then. So, 3, 2, 1, go.
This game is dope. So when's that new Hero Aka video coming out?
Hero Aka video?
We can skip forward a bit.
Oh yeah.
This is an ad.
Oh, okay.
Like a
so
minute, an exact minute.
An exact minute. All right.
Started with ad.
That looks like a point, but I'll just. Okay. We've got Has everyone got Zuckerberg's face?
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable, so I'm just going to press play so we can get past it.
Entrepreneur, I exist solely to give the people of the internet what they want. And what do they want? Hero Aka videos, Bryant.
Bark!
What's that, boy?
Bark!
The Hero Aka thing is just a meme,
Maybe
and the people
we
don't
can
really care
skip
what I make
like
content about as long as...
another 20 seconds.
What is he?
Skip the substance.
Yeah, this is. I'm not into this. I'm not. You shouldn't have the first minute of your video be this. Let's just say that.
This is somehow more annoying than the Why Does Anatube Suck video. We only just started.
Okay,
Well,
we're still on Hero Aka, and we're like a minute 42. We're on forklift.
Oh, yeah, I think it's safe to start here.
Alright, we'll start here.
That's all very quaint and uplifting in a very standard shonen kind of way. It's more than a bit of a stretch to take that message away from the most popular shonen anime of the last 5 years. In fact, My Hero Academia presents us with a world that explicitly runs on an elitist meritocratic system. It's one of the first things that we hear Deku say when he reminisces on his fight against Bakugo when they were children. All men are not created equal. Some kids have more power than others, and those kids have more ability to pursue their dreams than the powerless Randys who were born to get left in the dirt. It's a natural hierarchy imposed by Supergod that determines your social power tier from birth. But we aren't here to talk about that today. Today we're here to talk about another popular show, Rising of the Shield Hero. Shield Hero is another high-profile show that deals with concepts of social power and the responsibility that those who hold that power have toward those who don't. But there are two main differences between Shield Hero's portrayal of social power and that presented...
Okay, pause for a sec. I kind of disagree that Shield Hero is about responsibility in the use of power.
So something I think I've realized, like, from a lot of, like, the Anatube things that I've either been,
exposed to?
Yeah, exposed to, like, the devil's drawings that they are, is that they either make comparisons to, like, My Hero Academia or One Punch Man. It's like they're Harry Potter. It's the one thing they compare it all to.
I think that's mostly a trendy at the moment kind of thing, because at this given time, Hero Aka is essentially in the same spot Naruto, Bleach, One Piece,
Yeah, it's Naruto for Zoomers.
It basically is Naruto for Zoomers. So I'm not at all surprised. One Punch Man, on the other hand, is a little bit different, but I think similar kind of thing, where it's the big popular one, so they're obviously going to try and compare everything to the big popular.
Yeah, I mean, Sword Art Online is a very popular thing to bring up because it's bad most of the time. People say it's bad, at least.
And it's well known and easily recognizable to the ordinary person as well.
Yeah.
But back to the point of Shield Hero, because I'm up to date on Shield Hero, and I don't think that a lot of it does deal with a lot of abuse of power. There are a lot of characters in the show that abuse their power, or they are responsible with their power and use their power in a way that is detrimental to the world. However, to say that that's the main focus of the show, I think, is a bit of a stretch. I would say it's more of kind of like a side message.
Yeah, to be fair, the message, there is no message of you're powerful, therefore you're better than somebody else. The show, from what I understand from My Hero Academia, is that everybody has a skill. No matter how useless it may seem, you can take that skill. And
I was talking about Shield Hero.
Yeah, I know, but
not
the
Akka,
message,
because Akka's different. Akka, with Akka, you are correct that it's more about the idea of just because you lack power in one regard, you have it in another regard.
And even if you have, it's not. I'm reminded of Needless, where you got something similar. You got all these people with crazy superpowers, and the main character doesn't have a superpower, but the main character is kind of smart, so he does smarty thinky things, and that is his power, being smart.
Yeah, no, I'm rewatching that with friends right now, and it took him until, like, you know, them fighting the Bishojo squad to, like, actually figure out, oh, wait, I'm the only intelligent person in this show.
Yeah.
It's really good how it's played.
Yeah, so I don't think that the message of My Hero Academia, even if it kind of implies... No, I don't think it even implies, because Mr. Gene Man, who makes the best genes because his power is the power of genes, is not really portrayed as worse than Miss Mountain. It's who can just grow big, which is kind of useless otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, it's construction, but...
Alright, let's keep going.
By Hiroaka. First, while Hiroaka's power system is innate, i.e. you're either born a winner or born a loser, and there's not much you can do to change that, Shield Heroes is effort-based. No matter what hardships now...
I wanted to comment, the little subtle portraying the person in the red hat as the loser, very, very interesting. I like that. That was a good subtle.
Yeah, this video is a very visual one. Like, it doesn't give you much room to look away.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing. However, I actually do not particularly like the style of... I'm just gonna take all of these really badly edited images and cut... Like, look at this shit we're looking at right now. You see that green? You see that? What are you doing?
Well,
fucking learn to use Paint.net, you fucking idiot.
Or GIMP. You can
Jesus!
just select everything and just trim the borders by 3 pixels. 2 pixels.
Increase. You should use the magic wand tool to get the background color, right? Or if that's not possible, you should use the lasso tool, and then you should just increase your selection by like maybe 2 or 3 pixels, just so that you get because this is a common issue. If you just use the magic wand tool to get rid of things like this, you'll often have these lines where the color remains because it's the area where
that's part of the shitpost aesthetic. You have to understand.
Well, yeah, but it fucking triggers me because it's not like it's a hard fucking problem to solve.
I like this a lot more than the previous one, which was just quick memes.
I agree with you on that.
Quick stolen memes, yeah.
I agree with you on that, but it's just like, remember, I'm the guy that critiques the video's quality here, right? And this is a definite quality problem where if you're going to be using, because this video is relying very heavily on these kinds of images, and if these images have shit like what I'm looking at right fucking now, it's distracting. Don't do it. Make sure to check, and you know how you check? You change the background color to something like pink, or like red, or something, so you can see this green line here, right? So yeah, just fucking triggering me, but let's keep going.
Fumi goes through, he holds on to the mentality that hard work and money will get him what he needs without having to rely on the charity of others. Second is how each series deals with the relationship that an individual is intended to have with society, whether or not a powerful person has any obligation to aid the less fortunate, and what happens should they choose not to. To put it simply, Rising of the Shield Hero presents a world in which what's good for the individual is good for the collective. Any boon that comes to Naofumi, trickles down to the lay people. My Hero Academia shows a society in which everyone has a role, where the individual who's meant to protect the weak protects the weak, and the individual who's meant to be protected inspires and empowers the strong. Since Jeff already did a lot of the heavy lifting on the Hero Aka side of this argument with his...
Yeah, Jeff.
Excuse me?
Most...
Excuse me?
Well,
Excuse me?
Yeah, just before we get to the Jeff, you're the coolest, Jeff, Jove. I have to object to that Shield Hero is after money for power.
Yeah, it seems more to me he's after money to survive. Which is essentially the driving motivation of all of his acts. He's not really after money or power or fame, which is actually shown later in the series. Or he doesn't go to the big celebration after his name is cleared. He just leaves because he doesn't care about any of that shit. He doesn't care about the fucking fuck, what word is that?
Extra stuff.
So, yeah, what Lolly said, superfluous or whatever. I can't pronounce it because it's dyslexic. But that kind of shit. He doesn't care about that. He just wants to survive, and he wants to beat the waves because the waves are fucking catastrophes that are killing shitloads of people. Right? He doesn't. He's getting money, and he's using capitalism to get money, which is what he does. He uses, trading. He becomes a merchant, right? He does that because it's the only way for him to be able to get the equipment and the materials to be able to combat the waves. He's not doing it because he wants to become like a noble or high-class society, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I agree with you there. It's quite wrong. But also, citing Mother's Basement. Very interesting. Very.
Well, it supports his My Comrade Academia theory.
I have no doubts that. Well, I mean, sure, Mother's Basement Jeff can most certainly make arguments that are right and correct, etc., and may give arguments for stuff. I don't think he's
broken clocks and all that.
Right? Yeah, well, I won't be that mean. I will just say he hasn't been shown to have more of a desire to look at anime deeper, as than just the plain narrative. At the themes that an anime has, friendship. Everybody has a special power inside of him, her. Power isn't everything. Defend your country. Go on.
And such and such and such. But yeah, let's keep going because otherwise I'm gonna devolve into bad jokes about Mother's Basement.
This video, Boku no Hero Academia, the anti-Naruto, I'll focus on Shield Hero for the majority of this video and cover my arguments about Hero Aka in a shorter second part further down the line. Now, Fumi is an Ayn Rand protagonist gone isekai. He was a regular old nerd just like you and me until one day Atlas shrugged, he fell off the world and landed in a new one where trickle-down economics works. Right away, we see a social conflict being set up. Through no fault or decision of his own, Naofumi is saddled with the worst of the four cardinal weapons, the eponymous shield.
Subjective.
Yeah, I don't think that. I have watched this video. I did watch this video. I'll object stronger lately, but Naofumi isn't a more right-ish, wingish, Atlas shrugged protagonist.
I heavily disagree with that, but I also disagree with the because here's the thing: the idea that the shield is the weakest was perpetuated by the conspiracy. It's not actually fact that the shield is the weakest. Right? The shield has also actually been proven to be very reliable and very strong in its own regard. So
but
I think that's it.
I think you should take the in-universe look on it, because if people think it's weak and people accept it's weak, it might just well be weak.
Possibly, but yeah, it's I don't know.
I mean, if Shield was the strongest character by far, but nobody believed or made use of it, then the Shield hero might as well be the weakest, even though it's not true.
I guess you're right. I don't know. I just think it's very, considering what we've been seeing throughout the show, I think suiting that is just a little bit wrong. Just a little bit. But anyway, let's keep going.
Due to long-standing cultural prejudice, Naofumi is already at a disadvantage when it comes to climbing the social ladder. The Shield hero is said to be ignorant of Melremark's history and customs, so the people see him as stupid and unsophisticated. These ingrained ideas about the Shield hero's worth lead...
I just want to say that Trump photo was the best photo I've ever seen in my life. I to this day, love that photo. Of Trump and the
It's
takeout.
very American to have fast food everywhere.
It is the
It
most
was very American.
It was the most American photo I've ever seen, and I actually unironically love it. I think it was fucking great. I think it was actually fucking great, and I understand that clearly this guy is letting his biases sort of seep in, and he's putting some hints, right? He's putting some hints in there a little bit.
We would never do that.
He's kind of playing his cards a little bit, which is, you know.
I would never say anything like "fuck communist."
But this is the thing, right? I don't know. I think it sort of harms the video because here's the thing: if you're trying to convince people of something, or if you're trying to actually engage with people, if you just start dropping shit like what he did before with the two babies and the MAGA hat and that kind of thing. Like it's not really... You're just going to shut those people off. And maybe that's the intention, because maybe he's one of those ignorant people that just doesn't want to engage with the other side and would rather have them just go away. Which I wouldn't be surprised.
I also just think it's a political joke. He knows and we know that if you agree, you agree and you find it funny, and if you disagree, you find it not funny. I don't think it's really worth to hang on the point.
True. I don't know. It's just... I don't know. I do find that image funny, though. So, let's continue.
Leave him with no companions when the other heroes are gathering their parties. Fast forward to Mind's betrayal, and we see all of Melremark turn against Naofumi because of a crime that he didn't commit. Merchants refuse to do business with him, ruffians try to rob him, and the king nearly has him executed. He's an outcast, left with no social safety net and no means of clearing his name. This is where we start establishing Naofumi as a capitalist hero. What I'm going to call the capitalist ideal, as I understand it, is the idea that with enough hard work and ingenuity, anybody in any situation can rise above their station and become successful. There's a reason...
That is not capitalism. That is meritocracy.
Yeah, that's true. There's different ideas.
Capitalism is raising capital, focus on production as a measure of success, and investments and stuff are more important than basically creating physical products.
Also, yeah, capitalism is the system. Meritocracy is the idea. It's based like capitalism is based on the idea of meritocracy, but it's not.
Well, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree that capitalism and meritocracy are intrinsically linked, because...
Oh no, I'm not saying they're intrinsically linked. I'm just saying that the idea that yes, you can rise up in terms of capital from any particular location is a very common one, right? So
yeah, but I don't think that
meritocracy plays some role in the system. But I do agree with you that it is not like it is an the ideas are not intrinsically linked together in the way that he is presenting them here. Because the way he is presenting them here is just, well, capitalism is meritocracy, which is not correct.
No. And I can... Communism has a bad name, and...
Yeah!
Well, yeah, I'm going to just say that the state determining what you get and what you should own isn't really communism. That's more statism, that kind of stuff, that the state determines what you have and you can and cannot do. Communism is slightly different, where your labor has a direct proportional benefit to you. So instead of collecting a wage, for instance, for work, you own that much of the company. So that's a slightly different idea.
Yeah, well, it's also that, and it's also because it's, as in the name, is a communal thing. Your labor belongs to everybody. It's a collectivist type of deal.
Yeah, it's collectivist, but it's also what you do is what you own, kind of. And well, capitalism has a slightly different take on it.
But anyway, yeah, I think the main point we're getting at here is that his assertion that meritocracy and capitalism are essentially the same thing is not only factually inaccurate, but also quite a bit of a misstep. I would say that you could make the argument that meritocracy is it's definitely used within the capitalist system. However, yeah, it's not like both ideas. Like you can have meritocracy within other systems, is what I'm getting.
Yeah,
it's not that it's a exclusive thing within the capitalist system to have.
And that's the main point indeed on this pause, that meritocracy and capitalism are not the same thing, and conflating them here together means that he'll go way into the wrong directions. A murky paths.
Well, I mean, Jeff is the devil that set him down this path.
Yeah, I'm not surprised yet. Alright, let's keep going.
Endeavor isn't the protagonist of My Hero Academia. Watching someone step from second place to first is far less engaging and cathartic than watching someone rocket up to first place from not even on the leaderboard. Likewise for Naofumi, but while Deku rises to the top through mastering his quirk and helping others, Naofumi does it by focusing on playing the connections that he has and making enough coin to buy the influence and respect that he was initially denied.
Was there actually any point where he's shown to be buying influence?
He's gaining connections, but those connections are not based on his capitalism.
Yeah, he's gaining connections, and he's gaining connections, and he's getting respect from the merchants, and the merchant, because there's the merchant that's sort of helping him and working with him, right? He's getting his respect, but I don't think there's any point where Naofumi is shown to be. It's not like he's bribing nobles or, using
buying a title.
Yeah, exactly. He's not using that money to. He's not using that money to sort of raise his status again. Like I mentioned it probably before.
He defends the village, and the village loves him. He gets rid of the plague, and the people praise him for getting rid of the plague.
He still gets compensation for his work, obviously, but he's not. Yeah, and he uses his capital more so to prepare for. Like he's using it to buy equipment. He's using it to buy things that he's going to use. He's not using it to
buy investment bonds in the rebuilding the future.
He's not buying.
Of the village.
He's not putting it all into Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, man, he fucked up.
Yeah, he did buy it. But I think that's quite wrong there for him to say that Naofumi is using his capital to increase his status. I think that's quite wrong. But let's keep going.
In other words, when society refuses to give him what he needs to become stronger, he forsakes society and takes what he needs without any concern for the human factor of the...
That sounds like capitalism.
What? No, that's not, but that's incorrect. That's incorrect, though. Again, it's like you said, he saves the villagers. He demands compensation for his work, which to be honest is fair, right? He demands some form of compensation. However, he's still doing things that are humanitarian in a sense. Like he didn't have to save the village. He didn't have to. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to.
He does reject noble society, but he very much listens to the pleas of the common folk.
Yeah, he's a man. He's a man of the people, Ellie.
He's the man of the laborers in the fields, which sounds like a very different kind of person than a capitalist.
Sounds a little bit Russian, a little bit. a little
more Eastern European philosophy.
Rising of the Slav hero.
It sounds
That's the name of a much better series.
Oh, totally. It sounds like a little bit of muffled Russian national anthem playing in the background. But yeah, no, that his statements so far have just been completely It makes me wonder if he even watched the same fucking show as us, because his statement so far seems to be really, really, really wrong. Like, we're looking at this image right here, and he's like, "Are you raiding my birdseed storage? I'll pay you back when I'm rich." Like, that never fucking happens. When does this happen in the fucking show / series? Never. So I don't know what he's talking about here. It's very weird. So let's keep going.
The equation. For example, watch this interaction between Naofumi and the slave merchant in episode 2.
These aren't much suited for combat or manual labor.
Doesn't matter. If I need them in battle, I'll train them.
That's an amusing response when you don't believe in people.
Yeah, but slaves aren't people. Training one's the same thing as upgrading my shield.
Well, you got me there, that's for sure.
Okay. Two things. One, how do you know he's not playing up an act? Two.
Well, even if he's not playing up an act, he's kind of bitter at this point.
Yeah, I was about to say. Two, he's at his lowest point. He's at the lowest point he could possibly be. How you... And this is outside of this interaction. I don't think he's shown that level of bitterness again. I find it to be a very interesting example to use, honestly. Because, I mean, you could say that, yes, he is essentially denying the humanity of the slaves, and he is essentially, acting very much in this unhumanitarian way that he is describing.
Viewing them as commodity.
Viewing them as commodity rather than as people. However, he only does this once, in this one instance, to the slave merchant. And I believe in the other interactions that he has with the slave merchant, he doesn't necessarily address the issues with it. However, that's because he still has use for the slave merchant. So he doesn't want to get... Like, this is the thing, right? You don't want to fucking make the dude who's giving you what you want mad.
It's like walking into like a drug den or something. You have to kind of
you walk into a drug den and you go, "Why are you motherfuckers ruining the community with your drugs? Stop it." How do you think that's gonna go? How do you think that's gonna turn out?
What instead you do, you buy the gun that you want from them, you need from them, then you shoot up some worse criminals, and then you could buy the ammo from the crack dealer again to shoot some more worse criminals.
Yeah, you buy a crack gun.
Well, no. You act as a reseller for
you
drugs,
act
so you
as
can
a
buy
reseller.
guns.
Yeah, totally. So yeah,
let's finish this clip.
Yeah,
to see the point.
Naofumi recognizes that he needs physical strength in order to beat the waves and go home, but as a shielder, he's built for defense and support, not combat. So he needs party members, but that requires him to rely on other people, which he's not gonna do anymore. Because people in this world have done nothing but betray him, he refuses to work with them, and instead chooses to focus on buying equipment, i.e. Raftalia the slave raccoon. But when Naofumi says that slaves aren't people, he's not intending to demean Raftalia in any way. It's more of an exaltation. People have done nothing but betray and demean him. People have put him in this position where he has to threaten merchants and buy slaves just to accomplish what he was brought here to do. As someone who isn't a person, Raphtalia is able to provide Naofumi with all the benefits of human companionship without any of what Naofumi would consider to be the pitfalls of humanity. She's incapable of betrayal, deceit, lies. Why? Exactly because she's a slave, forced by magic to be perfect.
I don't think he'll bring it up, but the show doesn't. He kind of presents this as all positive things, which the show doesn't really do. Naofumi buying a slave is like in the clips shown before in the dub. It's done under dim lights, half faces covered in half shadows, cages with strange animals, and of course the slave merchant is the most shady motherfucker you'll ever see. So while the results of these transactions are positive, and even for Raphtalia, I think it's wrong to view it as a positive, even in the context of the show.
Yeah, I think necessary evil is the way I would describe it. It's necessary. It's necessary for Naofumi to use this evil in order to defend against the waves.
Well, you can maybe not even for Naofumi, because he's being after the betrayal, he's being overly sensitive to human interaction. Yeah,
a little bit. However, in saying that, I would feel like in terms of the character's headspace, he would be justified.
Yeah, but if, for instance, somebody more reasonable came around and smacked him on the head and said,
he would most likely reject that. Definitely.
Yeah, but
he is not in a mental headspace. He is not in a mental headspace to be able to trust that shit.
Yeah,
like,
but the problem is
if he just bumps into some random person who's acting all like, pull your head out of your ass, da 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 da, he's not gonna fucking like immediately change into fucking back to fucking being a good guy just because some random person. It would have to be a long form type deal. Like perhaps you could have a situation where Naofumi saves someone with his shield, right? Like, let's say that it was a young girl or something, right? With the shield.
Or a young lad who can hold a shield. Young short with a sword.
Yeah, young lad, young girl, whatever, right? Let's say, for instance, he saves them, like, they're getting attacked by low-level monsters and he punches the shit out of them or something, right? Then that character could follow Naofumi around despite his, like, perhaps they're an orphan or something, right? And they're on the streets, and they're beggars or something. And they follow him around. And then they don't stop following him around, and eventually he warms up to them. That's another possible scenario, right? That could have been done. However, that's not the scenario that we got. The scenario that we got was Naofumi doesn't trust anyone. He desperately requires some form of attack power right now. What can he do? Buy a slave.
Yeah, but the thing that I want to emphasize here is that Naofumi is in the wrong here. Naofumi is wrong to distrust everybody.
I don't know about that. Considering essentially everyone has been the way that they have been to him.
Well, the nobles, but the common folk.
No, even the common, because
yeah,
I mean
those adventurers. But I think
and the merchants don't trade with him, and everyone looks at him with disdain, and everyone treats him like kind of shit. So I don't know about that. I think
not the armor, the smith. Doesn't.
Or even the Smith's a bit fucking if on him though. At that point.
In the beginning, but he warms up very quickly.
Yeah. Well, but even then, I don't know. I wouldn't characterize Naofumi as being like, you could say that he's morally wrong within the context of him performing the act. He is morally wrong in doing it. However, I don't think that within his headspace he was wrong to take the action that he did. Right?
No, his headspace is a logical conclusion, but I don't think the show ever portrays Naofumi's actions as a reasonable thing to do.
No, they didn't portray it as a positive thing to do. Like I said, it's necessary evil, is the way I describe it. It's necessary for him to do it because to him he has no other option, right?
Yeah,
there might have been other options, right? As you're describing. However, that was not something that would have crossed his mind. An opportunity, because let's remember how he came to that situation, right? The slave dealer just kind of popped out and was like, "Hey, you want to buy some crack?" And Naofumi was like, "Sure, I'll buy some crack." And then they went to the tent, right? So the opportunity, like he was thinking about what he was going to do, and the opportunity presented itself, and he took it. It's not like I don't believe he specifically. I could be wrong here, and I might be misremembering, but I don't believe that he specifically looked out to go and get a slave. I think the opportunity was thrust upon him, and he took the opportunity.
Yeah, true. But yeah, main point, even in the show, even if the outcome was positive, him buying a slave is negative.
Was negative. Yes. All right. Okay, let's keep going.
Subservient. This is S.H.I.E.L.D. Heroes' idea of the responsibility of the powerless to the powerful. They're intended to be tools, assisting those with power and influence in achieving their goals. Master says jump, you jump, and if you refuse, get zapped by the magical slave collar on your tits. Wait, really? It's...
Yeah, sexuality, funny, etc.
Not an argument. Continue.
Really on her Jesus fucking Christ, I hate it.
If you hate anime, then fuck off, cunt. Sorry, I have very little tolerance for people bitching about sexual bullshit in anime. I'm sorry, I just no, fuck off. I hate that shit. I don't give a fuck if the magical slave collar is on her tits or not. Right? I don't give a shit. Fucking hell! Like what? What do you want it on her fucking labia?
That's because your mind has been warped by Satan's scribbles, man.
Oh yeah. My mind.
You saw the last episode.
I've been brainwashed by Satan's scribbles to think it's okay.
The devil's drawings.
The Lucifer's doodles to fucking think that goddamn slave tit bullshit's okay.
Lucifer's lectures from Anatube have corrupted you.
God, but no, I just have zero tolerance for fucking that bullshit argument because it's not even an argument. So let's continue.
To see S.H.I.E.L.D. Hero as an inherently pessimistic series. There are powerful people and there are powerless people who are used for the personal gain of the powerful. But S.H.I.E.L.D. Hero does at least try to make the issue more complicated than that. Despite being used as a literal tool for Naofumi's benefit, Raphtalia's life and social position are both dramatically improved by her association with him. When Naofumi purchases Raphtalia, she's sickly and on the verge of death, and the mustachioed peacock dumpling who sells her even questions how good she would be for combat. It's through fulfilling the duty that she has as an underling that Raphtalia is able to gain a degree of confidence and ability. She grows, literally, as a person because she accepts her role as her master's sword and devotes everything she has to fulfilling the duty.
This is a very dangerous, may be the wrong word, but this is kind of a dangerous thing to accept. That's Raphtalia's role is to be a slave. And this is what I think he misunderstands here, where he thinks Naofumi buying a slave, having a positive outcome means that buying a slave is good. Because even though it's benefited them both, it's benefited them both because they're both horribly broken.
Right, but
how
would you tackle? Now, I'm not going to make this argument because I actually don't think it's particularly that good. But how would you counter the obvious counter argument to this of, well, he brought the slave and has essentially, even though he is still technically forcing her to work with him, she is essentially free, and she chooses to work with him of her own volition, most practically the entirety of the time at this point. So you could technically say that he's buying the slave in order to free them, which would be a theoretical good act, right?
Well,
So how would you counter that argument? I'm more interested in your response than I am the actual argument.
yeah. So my basic response is that this relationship on its base level is completely imbalanced, and Raftalia is was completely dependent and still remains dependent on Naofumi, even though she might be free now. She has been basically imprinted.
Ear quotes free, right?
Yeah,
Quotes free.
because she still bears the mark, even if she
Well,
chooses
even if it's yeah.
she chooses to have the mark herself, which is kind of even though Naofumi questions her decision to get the slave mark again, her wanting to have this imbalanced relationship is also kind of a bad thing to celebrate. Because she'll never be a independent person. She can never lie, never deceit.
So your issue is that she's too dependent on Naofumi.
Yeah, even though she's very independent of Naofumi, she has no own free. She is very strangely limited her own freedoms for Naofumi's sake, even though he doesn't want to. Yeah. He still has far more power in this relationship.
See, this would normally be the time when I'd come in and counter, but I actually don't fully disagree with you, because I believe that if Naofumi was just went poof, just disappeared, right? He died, or she would be very, very, very distraught and very, very fucked by that. And that goes to show the dependency that they both have on not just it's not just her depending on him, but he depends on her because of course sword, to shield, that kind of thing. So yeah, I have to agree with you. I think that it is the relationship itself is definitely an issue. However, I don't see it as particularly much of a problem myself, but I can understand how it is a problem.
Yeah, of course it works, and in the show at least also. I won't say they should ban or whatever, change this because
and that's why I'm not countering you, because I know you. I know you're not going, ooh, it's bad, so that means you can't have it. Yeah, I know.
No, but I do think you should have a recognition that this situation that they are in, even I forget her name, the bird.
Fail. It's like Fo.
Firo,
yeah.
Firo, yeah. Even Firo is very dependent on the both of them, and has no. Well, she's more childlike too, but even then, it's still all very centered on Naofumi, more so than just an harem anime, because you can see a future without the main character in harem shows.
But of course, with Theo, there's also the element of imprinting, because technically, when Fo was born, both of them were seen as the parental figure. It's a different dynamic of relationship than the Naofumi to Raftalia one. So I could understand Theo being a bit more dependent on the both of them due to the fact that I believe that relationship is more of a parent to child relationship, whereas the Naofumi to Raftalia one is more of a, I would guess, a romantic sort of tinge to it. Although later on you start to see that there's a bit of competition between them and they fight.
Well, I think it's more of a comedy competition than a serious one.
Yeah, a little bit. So, yeah, I think I agree with you there. I think that it's
yeah. Just to wrap it up again, this video presents this slave-master relationship as very positive. It benefited them both, therefore it's good.
But it's not showing that there are actually other issues.
And even if even if the entire in-game universe agrees that this situation is good, doesn't mean it still can be bad. Just because it's in full sunlight and flowers on the grassy hills doesn't mean this relationship is wrong.
Right. And before we continue, I will do another comment. See, he managed to do it correct here. Like, look at the sword, right? He's cut off a little bit of the outline on the sword there, but that shows me that he has actually done a pretty decent lasso tool on that, right? Like, he's not.
Well, I think if I look,
it's not terrible. You can see a little bit where
hands
he's
a little cut off too.
hands a little cut off. You know, the
I think
hair
it's just
looks a little
the
weird.
eraser tool just going on the complete edge, even the hairs and her ear.
Yeah, it could be the eraser. It could be the eraser tool. But here's a pro tip: use the lasso tool. Don't use the eraser tool. It'll save you a shitload of time to use the lasso tool to do this kind of work if you're going to be doing it in that way. If you're not using a magic wand, so it's just a tip. But yeah, let's keep going.
That she has to her superior. This hits on the capitalist ideal that Shield Hero's world is trying to present. That which benefits Naofumi benefits Raphtalia because Raphtalia serves Naofumi. In serving Naofumi, Raphtalia is in turn serving herself. Likewise, in serving himself, Naofumi is serving Raphtalia, and, inadvertently or not, he serves society at large. As I said before, Shield Hero argues that what's good for the individual is, ultimately, good for the collective.
Yeah, so we already disagreed with this.
Yeah.
Because mainly the money that Naofumi gets from the villager doesn't get reinvested in the villagers. It's the actual labor. Let's use funny communist words. It's the labor of Naofumi that benefits the villagers, not the capital of Naofumi.
He's making very definitive statements again as well. He's saying that, well, Shield Hero does do this. It most definitely does do this, but he's not the image we're looking at right now is supposed to illustrate what he's saying, but it's not necessarily what's really happening. Like, yes, Raphtalia and Naofumi have sort of a symbiotic relationship, I would say. Like, Naofumi needs Raphtalia to be stronger. Raphtalia being stronger benefits Naofumi. Raphtalia needs Naofumi for both emotional support and defense. So there is a bit of a back and forth between the dynamics, but it's not necessarily this idea of trickle down. Everything that's good for Naofumi is good for Raphtalia. Everything that's good for Raphtalia is good for Naofumi. I don't see this in the show.
The best thing for Raphtalia is to get rid of her slave mark.
Rise up
of the rise of the raccoon girl.
So we need to have the raccoon revolution. And we need to overthrow the bourgeoisie shield overlords. Hey, I'm just taking a drink. Lolly, you've been quiet. Say something.
I haven't watched this show, so there's not a lot I can say here.
All right, well, fair enough, but it's just, let's keep going then. We're getting there. We're past halfway, so we're almost done.
Whether they intend for it to be or not. Take a look at Naofumi's actions leading up to his becoming our savior of the heavenly fowl. In simple terms, he's a money-grubbing bastard with no sense of common decency.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I don't know about that.
No.
I don't think he's a money-grubbing bastard with no sense of common decency. Again, he does help people, and he does deal with... he fucking kills those bandits. Well, I don't know if he kills the bandits, but he does stop the bandits from raiding the road. He does a whole lot of things. He helps out the old lady with the medicine really early on. He doesn't have... this is the thing, he doesn't have to do these things. He doesn't have to help these people. But he does.
Yeah, but I think he's going to portray these traits as a good thing. Also, it kind of leads up to
which is very weird because it's not.
It plays again into this thing of if it benefited the main character, it is a good thing to do. But what about the good old tradition of showing somebody benefiting from a bad thing, and therefore the character is bad?
Anyway, let's continue.
He's got sick people begging him to save their lives, and he's demanding cash before he does anything about it, despite having the power to.
Okay. But that's the thing, though. You can be selfish.
He needs cash in order to save more people. That's my takeaway from this.
Yeah, like, you can't... If he just uses all of these potions on people, right, like, for free, he's not going to be able to make more potions, because he's not going to be able to buy more ingredients, because he needs to be able to buy more ingredients to make more potions to save more people.
And what he does, he kind of does the thing, he gives medicine and then asks for all their money, kind of, almost all the money.
But then he also doesn't necessarily, like, because a lot of the time they say they don't have money. Well, I'll take something else then. Give me food. Give me resources. Give me just give me something, right?
Which isn't really a good capitalist thing or a merchant thing, even, where you only does something after a trade has been established. He does something and then he asks for what the people can give.
That's true. However, it's I don't know, man. I don't know about that.
To save their lives. What a cock. See these bandits? They found him on the road and they were all, give us your money. And he was all, how about you give me your money? And then he takes all their stuff and says that he'll kill them if they don't hand it over, which prompts this conversation between the merchant they're transporting and the raccoon slave.
But doesn't this make us just as evil as they are?
I'm afraid I don't agree. They're offering up everything they have to purchase safe passage from our savior. He's simply treating their lives as merchandise. If I may say, Sir Hero's a shining example of the true trader's spirit, something lacking in our youth today.
Looks like intimidation.
Instead of being chastised for becoming the monster...
This isn't positive, and instead of being chastised, this is positive. And this merchant is being an ass, treating human lives as commodities. He's basically a slave trader. Naofumi is a slave trader. He's being the master of their lives and can control their whatever. He can do whatever he wants with them.
After he's defeated them, obviously, because they attacked first.
Well,
let's not forget we're talking about bandits here, who just a moment ago were threatening to kill him and take all his stuff. And then the roles have been reversed. So,
but of course, even if that precedes it, it doesn't really justify his action of treating them as slaves now.
It's a very interesting moral conundrum.
Well, if we don't agree on Naofumi here, do we agree with the merchant and his assessment that this is a good thing?
Well, think about that. I don't necessarily agree with the merchant's assessment, however, I can see the utility in what's happening.
Yeah, for Naofumi it's a valuable trade. He gets a lot of stuff for free, basically, along the road. Yeah. But the merchant's view on it is dehumanizing. Just, if a human can be a product, well, then we sell the human.
However, the interesting factoid here is that's the merchant's take, not Naofumi's take.
Yeah.
And the guy in the video is acting as if that was Naofumi's take, rather than being the merchant's take. So it's two completely different characters acting, because Naofumi's reasoning could be different to what the merchant's is.
Yeah.
And outside of that context, they're bandits, so they very likely acquired most of that stuff by robbing and potentially killing people. So they're just it's just a form of it is a form of justice. They're getting their stuff taken and being told, they're getting their stuff that they probably purchased or by blood and being told to just screw off. He could have killed them.
Yeah, could have killed them. Could have killed them after he took all the stuff from them.
And if we do a slightly interpretive reading of this, if the merchant here is a stand-in for capitalism, then this stand-in for capitalism says human lives are just a commodity, which isn't a positive message.
No, it's not. So yeah, let's keep going.
That he is, Naofumi is praised for his industriousness, and that industriousness pays off. He uses the money that he makes from these encounters as an investment, which lets him go to other villages and make more money by solving their problems. That money then gets put back into his business, which lets him take on more clients to make more money to solve more problems while making more.
This doesn't happen.
Yeah, so that, yeah. One, it doesn't happen, and two, the end goal is to stop the waves. He requires this to stop the waves. Like, it's again, this concept of necessary evil is what I feel like the show is actually going for. It's a necessary thing for him to need to demand, payment for things and to be able to fucking make money, right? It's this,
He doesn't sell a scary mask to a villager who uses the scary mask to scare a raccoon, so the raccoon can go back to Naofumi and have Naofumi to fix the situation he created himself.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen.
It's a very, very... A lot of the things this guy talks about didn't fucking happen. Found. It's really weird. It's like I said, it's like he's watching a completely different fucking show. His logic is completely different. It's so weird, but let's keep going.
Money. Contrast this to the actions of the other heroes. Itsuki, Ren, and arguably Motoyasu all buy into what Naofumi calls a hero fantasy, the idea of being a big-shot video game hero who can go around the country doing good for goodness sake. Their acts of altruism are showy and dramatic, killing a dragon that plagues a small village, saving a starving population with a legendary crop, overthrowing the despotic lord of an impoverished, far-off county. But each of these traditional acts of heroism, presumably performed for purely altruistic reasons, comes back to bite the asses off the people who are supposed to be being saved. Itsuki's rebellion seems good for the people at first, but ultimately winds up leaving the common folk more impoverished than they were to begin with. Ren's dragon-slaying hoedown causes a literal deadly plague, and Motoyasu's legendary crop was actually tentacle monsters the whole time. In Shield Hero's universe, the idea of a hero who swoops in and saves the day with a dramatic act of altruism is naive, and it does nothing but inflate the ego of the would-be hero at the expense.
And it just causes problems.
Yeah.
That Naofumi has to solve. And
but not through capital. Through labor.
Not through capital, through labor. You're correct. So yeah, let's keep going.
Of the week. Now, Fumi's business-minded lifestyle, while it seems heartless and cruel at a glance, does cause legitimate improvement in the lives of those with whom he interacts. And the reason for this is because Shield Hero has a specific philosophical mindset that it's trying to advance. It's trying to extol capitalist virtues by presenting a situation in which those virtues work, while largely ignoring or rounding off the edges of some of the snags its philosophy of choice hits when transferred to the
everything works in small scale. Right? Like, in Naofumi's case, right? We're talking about a very small scale implementation of the capitalist system. We're not talking about an entire nationwide implementation of the same system.
Well, if we even accept that Naofumi is implementing capitalist systems at all.
Exactly.
Which I don't.
I don't think he's implementing. I think he is simply because the world clearly already has a somewhat capitalist type system already, right? Like, it's not like it's feudalism, right? It's not feudalism. Doesn't seem to be fascism. You do have a monarchy, but the monarchy doesn't seem to be necessarily that.
It's the equivalent of the burghers trading in Europe. During the transition from the feudalist era to the Renaissance.
Yeah,
mercantilism.
There's not really because clearly capitalism happens because you wouldn't have weapon shops, potion shops, magic shops. You wouldn't have shops at all right? If there
Well,
wasn't
you can
some
have
form of
shops
trading.
without. You can have shops within capitalism. You don't have the investments, etc.
Yeah, they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be good. They wouldn't be good shops, is what you're telling me.
They would be local shops, serving
Right.
local needs.
Which is not. Again, small scale works, large scale doesn't.
Yeah, but
Because we have massive cities and castles here. We're not talking about like small villages most of the time. There are small villages and they do probably have small shops, but when you're talking about shops that have to serve an incredibly large amount of people, it starts to get a bit iffy. But that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Going back to my point here is that Naofumi is only working within a very small kind of subject range. He's not really going into like, because yes, there are flaws with capitalism, and those flaws tend to become pronounced once you start to move into a more widespread implementation. On a smaller scale, it seems to work a little bit better. It's similar to another thing, right? Another thing that begins with C, right? It works really. It sounds really good in theory, and it works in a short, small kind of compact testing environment. But then once you start to expand it to more and more and more and more,
it probably needs a lot of regulations and stuff and oversight.
It starts to fall apart, yeah. And that's the other thing, is that's why capitalism became regulated, because over time, right, we started we had shit like child slavery and workers and that kind of thing. But the thing is, we don't have that now because we have regulation that came in and stopped that from happening, right? We're talking about a world where that hasn't happened yet. We're not at that stage.
Yeah, and I don't think even in Naofumi just does do the we'll call it capitalism now, trading goods. I don't think that really falls under capitalism as a whole, because that's the Stone Age, same as Stone Age.
People been trading shit since the dawn of time. Yeah.
Yeah, so trading. And even Naofumi's actions, he always seems to take too much, and the villagers are not really shown to be that better off afterwards. They're alive and they're kind of well, but they're not. They basically gave nearly all of what they have.
That's true.
So I don't think. If Naofumi is, in this case then, a stand-in for capitalism, it shows how much capitalism takes away from you.
In a sense, you could say that. Yeah, I don't agree with you, but I don't agree with you, because in a lot of the cases the villagers did end up better off. Particularly talking about the fruit one with the tree, right? That he did another fucking sex bullshit. Thing with tentacle monsters. See, with that one, you can say that they're better off, because not only did Naofumi solve the problem that was threatening their lives, but he made the plants better to the point where they could then set up a proper agricultural hub, right? Using those plants and selling those plants as farming, which would in the long run, right? If we're talking about like short term versus long term, yes, in the short term he took a lot from them, but in the long term he gave them the means to be able to have better standing in a later point in time, once those plants start to fruit and start to set up the trade with those plants, which also benefits Naofumi, because that was part of the deal where he would be the one that would set up trade routes for those plants, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that. Well, did he gain a right to set up trade routes for the village, or?
I believe he was part of what set up the trade routes with the other. I think he set it up with the other merchant. I'm trying to remember. It was something. It was a deal along those lines where he would set up. He set up the trade, or negotiated the trade with the other merchants, or something along those lines.
But
I would have to rewatch it. I'm just going off memory, but that's what I vaguely remember.
Yeah, because I don't really remember that Naofumi made another investment in the village. He'd basically get some.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but I vaguely remember something about him
Well, he
seemed
gained some.
outraged.
He took some seeds, and just
Well, he took some seeds and he took some fruit, which he took with him. So
some fruits and some seeds. But to my best of recollection, he didn't make a capitalistic investment thing out of it.
yeah, he didn't make a capital investment in it. Sure, we'll find out in a second. Okay. So. Right, let's keep going.
Real world. Take Naofumi's ideas about payment, for example. When Naofumi encounters his first would-be customer, the man on the road who just spent all his money on medicine for his sick mother, Naofumi insists that he be paid to transport him back to his village. Upon learning that the man is flat broke, Naofumi waves his hand about it, saying he can pay him whenever as long as he gets his money. We see this so many times, with Naofumi deferring payment for service rendered, or accepting barter or credit, or at one point selling his GMO super seeds to a starving village and accepting those same GMO super seeds as payment for themselves. He's a serious businessman, and he refuses to do anything that doesn't directly benefit him, but he's also not a dick about it. If some poor person is going to die, he'll cure them now and accept his payment later, unlike certain other individuals and companies who treat human life as a commodity that the rich can thoughtlessly buy and sell for their own benefit. And while that's all well and good, that's not how things work in reality. Imagine.
Yeah, let's take fantasy and and bring it into reality.
Yeah, but I also think that I'm slightly more critical of Naofumi here, where he's been constantly being portrayed as an asshole for doing this. So I also. It's never being really shown that Naofumi is in the right for taking everything.
Yeah, even Raphtalia sometimes questions his greed, right? Like, it's not like it goes unquestioned. Like, Raphtalia does often make a quip about, are you really going to force them to pay you for this, right? Like, there is a level of, he is technically doing something wrong. Right? Like, it's not fucking always just, oh, yeah, no, we're on board. Even in that fucking scene that he showed with the merchant, Raphtalia was the one that was going, well, hang on a minute. This seems a bit fucking wrong, And the merchant was the one that was going, well, no, it's fine. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I don't think in that case the show is critical of Naofumi and his capitalistic ways. So just by that point, I don't think the show portrays this. If you can, I have slight doubts that this is even something you can call capitalist. But if we accept this as capitalist, the show is saying this is bad.
Yeah.
So how is this a capitalistic hero if the show says this capitalistic hero is an asshole and he shouldn't be doing this?
And now we're going to get into a fucking real life comparison, which is always fun when talking about these kinds of things. So let's see what he has to say.
If you will, a patient goes to the doctor's office at Our Savior of the Heavenly Fowl Medical Institute in Tadayusha, North Carolina. This is the conversation that S.H.I.E.L.D. Hero wants you to believe happens there. Hello, doctor! I am in need of the medicine so as not to catch the death. Save, please? Do you have the currency? I do not. The insurance? I do not. I am but a simple basket weaver of little means. Well, how about you give me the baskets, that I may use them to carry more medical supplies to more patients, and by so doing, grow my business and heal more sick. That sounds like an amicable arrangement. Oh, I am already cured. Bring the baskets when you have a free moment during the week, and have a nice day. This is the conversation that actually happens there. Hello, doctor. I am in need of the medicine so as not to... Do you have the currency? I do not. Do you have the insurance? I do not. I am... Guess you die. Next, do you have the currency? Yes. I will use the currency to purchase luxury...
What?
This is kind of unrelated and unimportant.
I just want to point out that while I definitely don't think somebody should go into debt over a medical problem that they can't control, at the same time, this isn't in a vacuum. People can take out loans. They can petition their friends or family for... Like, it would actually work in a grander sense, like it is in Shield Hero, by his argument.
My problem with this is that the one that he's showing now that he says is the conversation that happens is not the conversation that happens. The first one is more correct. The first one is objectively what tends to happen. Like, if you watched Shield Hero, right? The first one is what he does. He's like, "Do you have the currency? No. Do you have anything else? Yes." And then he'll heal them. And then, as Ellie said, you know, it's bad to, you know, do the thing before you get the, you know, like, it's not really how you should do it. But right. That's like the first one is 100% more accurate. Yeah,
he says
right
that this is what happens, but he says in the real life the second situation happens. But then again, this is an American way of doing things and not.
But that's not
even
the case, though. That's not even really the case, though, because you would be because what he's getting at is that in Shield Heroes universe you can defer debt to a later date. That still happens even in these scenarios. People will take out loans. People will ask, you know, their friends or family or any social contacts.
How charity becomes a big thing.
Yeah, so debt deferring actually does happen. No, I don't think it's necessarily right, because I don't think somebody should get into debt because, I don't know, something they can't control. But at the same time, it actually does work it's presented in Shield Heroes universe, according to this guy.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider is that doctors need to be paid. You know, like that's the whole kind of problem. Doctors, and you can't just have free fucking labor. That's not how that works, right? The doctor does need to get paid for his work. Right?
But I have a more slight problem that this is the American system, where of course I'm living in liberal Europe.
Well, I mean, New Zealand also has the healthcare, right? But it's you still have to pay for some shit, and you do pay for it, right? You pay for it in fucking taxes, right? That's what people don't understand. Somebody has to fucking pay for it. Right? It's either going to be you paying for it, or you're going to be contributing to paying for everyone else via your taxes, right?
So that when
or your business paying for it, so that when you eventually get sick or when you eventually have a problem, you'll be covered by the same thing as everyone else that you have been contributing to, right?
That's completely off topic, and I don't want to go too far down this tangent. But a lot of the problem in the U.S. isn't necessarily that healthcare isn't free; it's that it's not affordable, and that's specifically because we tend to have how regional pricing works with insurance companies and how pharmaceuticals tend to price gouge.
You see, the problem here is it's a very, very complex issue that this dude is boiling down to be very simple.
Well, he's boiling it down like most politicians boil it down to him, because most of the time they're like, oh, well, if it's free, it'll solve all the problems. No, it absolutely won't solve all the problems, because it doesn't change the fact that a lot of this healthcare isn't affordable.
And someone has to pay for it. Like, you can't...
Yeah, it also depends on the procedure. I had an optional operation that was free. I walked into the hospital, I got an operation, I walked out, and then didn't pay anything.
Well, yeah, no, it's free to you.
That's what I was saying. It's free to you, but you pay for it in taxes.
Yeah.
Because you pay higher taxes than other places.
So what I'm saying is that wouldn't be sustainable in the U.S. specifically, not because the price of healthcare necessarily has to be that expensive, but because of how protectionist our pharmaceutical industries and how our insurance industries work.
Yeah,
they're really in bed with a lot of things. Anyway, this is off topic. Let's go back.
It's a complicated issue, and I think that
anime. Let's go.
In terms of Shield Hero, before we continue, would like to cap off this point. Right, the first example that he showed what happened in Shield Hero is what happens in Shield Hero and is correct. The example he's showing here of what happens in real life is not really what does tend to... Because here's the... Like, I don't want to keep going on, but if there was an emergency situation, like, the ambulance is still going to take you. The ambulance is still going to take you to the hospital, and you're still going to get treated, right? They're not just going to
you just get a bill. It's they're
not.
Death.
They're not going to just throw you out on the street with a fucking like stab wound and leave you to die, and they're not going to just like throw you out if you have some kind of disease because you can't pay, right? Because I actually know a guy. And I know this is going off topic, but I do want to talk about it because it's actually important, right? I know a guy who actually works somewhat in ER, and he works in ambulances, and he works in that kind of thing in America, right? And he was talking about it in a server with a bunch of people, and he was talking about how it doesn't matter if it's a poor person, a bum, a homeless person, or whatever. If they get the call to go out, they will do the job, and then they worry about the payment later. They don't care. Yeah. They don't care about if it's a poor person or not. They're not just going to leave someone out there to die if someone rings up and says, "Hey, there's someone dying."
One thing, look at the edges of the hair.
It keeps getting worse.
Yeah, I had to do that. But no, I just kind of wanted to put that out because it's an important thing. Yeah, his analogy is bullshit. But it's 3 minutes left. Let's go.
Luxury goods, and I will not catch the death. Note that I have intentionally provided subpar care and put you through unnecessary tests in order to maximize my profit and encourage you to come back for further treatment. I can do nothing about this. Thank you for your time. We hope to see you again. Next, do you have the currency? So when I say that Shield Hero represents the capitalist ideal, I truly do mean ideal. Now, Fumi is a self-made man, and he's being presented as someone to be admired. He stands against society, and he forges his own path when the world stands against him. He values his time and his work, and he demands payment for anyone wishing to access his particular set of skills. But he doesn't let those demands get in the way of other people's right to live. This isn't how real people...
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is very hard to follow the conclusion when you disagree on most of the points. Mainly that this is capitalistic to begin with, that Naofumi embodies capitalism if he embodies the positive values of capitalism. If the show is even being positive about capitalism as a whole.
But let's keep going.
They ain't really particularly doing that. Like, my takeaway, mind you, again, I haven't watched or read this, so maybe my interpretation is skewed based off of this, but all this really shows is that Naofumi is engaging in this system because there's no better system, not because it's an ideal system. I don't even think the author thinks it's an ideal system. It's just showing as this is what needs to be done in order for us to not die in the moment.
This is the system that is in place. Naofumi is just playing the game, basically. So yeah, let's continue.
But is that ultimately a problem for Shield Hero? Not necessarily. Anime serves largely as a medium for escapism, isekai anime most of all. And one of the benefits of escapist media is that it doesn't...
So this is very non sequitur.
Yeah.
This doesn't follow.
My takeaway is that this guy is a filthy communist.
Well, I mean, he does like Mother's Basement, so kind of.
Well, he's very in favor of capitalism, so maybe not entirely.
Well, why would he cite Mother's Basement then? Because Mother's Basement is this
entire ending segment in particular, and the whole thing with the insurance thing in particular, just kind of screams that he's using this as a means to bitch about the fact that things cost money. This is the video equivalent of that meme image with the black kid being like, "Why is everything gotta cost money?"
Yeah. Alright, let's keep going.
Naofumi wheel and deal his way up from abject poverty to become a savior and a hero is satisfying. And even if the series' ideals don't perfectly reflect how things really are, they do serve as a good launching point by which to discuss the parts of those ideals that do have merit in
See, for some things I'll give him credit. For some things I'll give him a pass, because when it comes to lighting can be a problem to try and crop. Like with this guy's hair, right? Like, you can see where the light kind of starts hitting the hair, right? On the edges.
Yeah.
I can kind of forgive that, but I can't forgive actually leaving parts of the background in the fucking crop, right? So, yeah, I just, one last quip about the quality of it.
Reality. That's the power of fiction. It teaches us how best to be ourselves. Join me eventually for part 2 of this video, where I talk about My Hero Academia and its portrayal of the capitalist ideal. And while I've got you here, remember to click the link in the description to visit this video's sponsor.
I think it's over.
Right.
Yeah.
So, conclusions. Capitalism ho. The Federation did nothing wrong.
Federation.
And yeah, I think that this video was a mess.
Yeah, it confusing or misusing meritocracy and capitalism just starts you off on the wrong premise. Afterwards, not being able to see the difference between something that is portrayed positive but is means as a criticism, and something that is just positive is kind of an issue.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you get wrong conclusions, if you think everything in the show is positive and an endorsement of it, then yeah, of course, killing people is good.
Yeah, no, like my takeaway is that he's saying that it's supposed to be an uplifting or like a hero story that's in favor of a capitalist system, but my takeaway is that the author probably doesn't really like capitalism that much either. I think, yeah, his interpretation of the show as being a positive portrayal of it per se is sketchy. I'm not convinced in that regard.
Me neither. I think the video is a bit of a mess, and I think that he's he's there are some points where he is saying shit happened in the show that just objectively did not happen, and that's very bad. you should. It feels like he took a completely different conclusion than what the reality of it was. And it's actually very similar to Mother's Basement, who had a similar problem where he was saying that Naofumi was arrogant, lazy, and entitled, and that's why he got the false rape accusation levied against him, because he got tricked into that, and it was his fault. Essentially victim blaming, which is very ironic for someone like Mother's Basement to be going on about victim blaming. But it's a similar kind of thing, where it's like we watched the same thing, but came to completely different conclusions on that same thing. And
which isn't a problem per se, but just saying stuff that didn't happen. Of course, you can have different views. But
it's a problem when it's something so drastic. Like, you can draw different conclusions from the same thing, but if those conclusions are based off stuff that just objectively did not happen, and I don't understand how they could have imagined that of happening, right, when it clearly didn't.
Well, I can't, for me personally then, I can't accept any conclusions that portray the slave thing as a positive. That the show is communicating to the viewers that buying a slave is a positive act. I don't believe the show is doing that at any level. And if somebody argues that the show is doing that, they're wrong.
And like I said, the most I would go in saying that it was a positive would be Necessary Evil. I would not go any further than that. Like, Necessary Evil is just what I would describe that as. It's not good, clearly, and it's not portrayed as being good, but it's portrayed as being necessary within the eyes of Naofumi and his current situation as Headspace and the opportunity presented to him. Like,
and if you can make... You can make at least a more slight an argument that his relationship with Rosalia is a positive one, because it has had a positive effect. That you can say, well, is the result justified? Is the result justified, or does the result justify the journey towards it? That's of course, you can have a discussion on it.
Yeah, and we kind of did in this episode about it, because you can also make the argument that they are too dependent on each other, and that's a negative. So, yeah, overall, I think the video definitely needs some work. He needs to look up some definitions, and get what he's talking about a bit more correct, right? Because it's definitely the meritocracy conflation with capitalism is very bad. And it kind of ruins the whole, like, because he's setting up his thesis on a shaky foundation, which is a problem.
Yeah, and he had a little more. He also had a very shaky foundation on My Hero Academia, where his takeaway from the show is that if you have power, you're better than everybody else. While I think that the message of My Hero Academia is everybody has something that they're good in, that they can do very well, and it is just finding that thing that you can do very well, and then you'll succeed. Which is a very different message from if you're born with this power, then you're God.
Yeah, pretty much. Alright. Well, if there's no other points, then I reckon we're pretty much done on this one. It's been a good ep. So,
yeah. I'll stop recording.